Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode. On October 14th, 2019, this podcast, Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals, released our episode on the Joker. The episode is titled Avant-Garde Artist, and we focused on Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, Jared Leto, and the new Joaquin Phoenix version of Joker. We had a lot of fun. We had the guests, the Brotherhood of Batman on. We did like a 2-part with other Batmans. And I don't know about you guys, but this is one of my fondest memories of the podcast, or this 2-part episode.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the years, we've always covered Batman IP whenever it's been released. And so,
which is crazy because you're not a big Bat
I'm not a big,
are you?
No, I think Batman's like your favorite, right?
It is my favorite, although I am suffering from Batman fatigue. Batman
fatigue?
IP. Yeah. Like, and that actually might take some higher precedence over even just comic book fatigue in general.
Wow. Yeah. Well, because at this point, Batman IP comes out every 2 years, if that.
We have 2 of them at the moment.
Yes, we do.
I guess at the moment, kind of.
Oh my gosh. Well, so we were excited when we knew this movie was coming out, and we were like, oh, maybe we can do some Harley Quinn IP,
Yes.
focus on different ones. And then the movie came out. And so let's just preface this right now before we get into it. We're probably just going to focus on this movie and have kind of like a conversation about the finished product and the reception of it and the current state of how to handle IP like this and superhero IP in general. We focused on it so many times. To answer your question too, I think I like Batman more than any other superhero. I grew up with him the most with the Michael Keaton movies and Adam West movies. And, along with like maybe Spider-Man, Batman is the biggest superhero in terms of media. And
Yes,
so we all
I would
have
agree.
it's apparent. We all have very, very strong feelings about this IP.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to get into today on this unique and special episode of Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. So I'm Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
About unoriginality.
Wow.
Love it.
Stumbled on that one.
That opening line about unoriginality is very fitting for today's episode. Let's just preface that. If you are someone who reads or just knows anything about like movie news and how movies are performing, you probably know that the new movie Joker, Folie, Deux is the biggest box office disappointment, I would say, so far of the year 2024.
Yeah, for Folie a dud. Am I right?
As some people are calling it, fully a doo-doo.
Okay,
I like that one.
That's cute.
And this movie is getting really, really overwhelmingly negative reactions. Do we share? We'll get into that soon. But unless you've been living under a rock and you're a movie fan, you know this already.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to hop on this bandwagon of everybody talking about it because it's really prevalent in the discourse right now. And I'm sure we all have a lot to say. So let's try and remember what October 14, 2019 looked like when we first Todd Phillips' 2019 version of Joker. I was never the biggest fan of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I even had some like concerns about it, but I thought his performance, Joaquin Phoenix's performance, was fantastic. Now, thinking back about this movie, I mean, have you guys seen this movie more than once? Like when it came out, are you fans of this movie?
I like the movie, but it's not a movie I want to see again.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's definitely just like a one and done for me. I think it was great performances, really gritty, really, I don't know, almost grounded for a superhero movie, like a comic book movie. It's like an anti-comic book movie, if you will. Right?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
I remember liking it, but I also did not want to revisit it, which is kind of the reason why I wasn't necessarily looking forward to covering it on this podcast. right?
Yeah.
Because it was not a movie that I necessarily wanted to see again. Maybe because I think by the end of it, it was so dour and it just had such a bleak outlook.
Yes, bleak is definitely a word that I would use for that. What about you, Eddie?
So I really enjoyed this movie. I really like the take on a Joker character. The Joker is a villain that I don't enjoy at all as part of the Batman mythos. So
That's
even
a crazy thing to say.
I know I don't enjoy the Joker. It's probably a clown
Wow.
thing, you know. It's a Caribbean thing, you know, with clowns. But yes, I'm not a crazy, but I really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker and how very real it was and how very much of that time period it was on how mental health was being addressed during that period.
Yeah.
And how just a lot of people were being untreated, or there was no way of, you know, of facilitating treatment. So all those kind of elements felt really real and gritty. So did enjoy it. Did see like this new adaptation of his origin story. But that's also too, I could not revisit this material again. I rarely watch movies twice unless I'm a big, like, this is sci-fi, a big sci-fi thing. But this one was like so, I think, so raw in its violence and its filming that I was like, those images are already there.
Yeah.
You know, it's already there for me.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess I would agree with everybody else. You know, I guess I would say I liked it the least just because I wasn't excited about the idea. I was like, this is kind of pointless. And at the end result ended up being like a regurgitation of two huge Martin Scorsese movies, Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. And I was like, well, the success of this movie is pretty much based on how much it stole from these 1970s character studies, which necessarily wasn't necessarily original to me, but whatever. And then the best part about the movie, in my opinion, other than Joaquin Phoenix's performance, is the ending and how subversive it is, because you do find yourself, you know, pretty much wanting Mary Franklin to die and like siding with this character who you know is completely unhinged and mentally unstable and like needs immediate attention. But you're also angry at the system that, you know, has taken advantage of him and has abused him and has exploited him and mocked him. And, you know, you want him to have his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
But then outside of that, you know, it felt weird because I'm like, are they critiquing this character or are they celebrating this character? Because at the end of the day, the Joker is a hugely celebrated character. He's widely regarded as one of the greatest villains, if not the greatest villain in any sort of graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's up there with maybe Dr. Doom or other characters that are just like, he's number one in terms of people thinking like the greatest villain ever portrayed in comic books.
Doom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, comic books are my thing.
Like, I don't know how many people think of maybe Magneto. Maybe is that who you were thinking of?
Dr. Doom is Fantastic Four, not Dr. Octopus. Magneto's a good one. Thanos, I'm sure, is now up there. Just ones that people are like, yeah.
Yeah, like there's Lex Luthor. You know,
yes.
There's like some super villains that just come to mind of like just super villainy.
Yeah, and Batman definitely has the best villains. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, he just has the best rogues gallery as it's
yes. So, but you know, there's a reputation that comes with the Joker, and the movie was interesting in, you know, saying, well, how does a man like this become that? Mm-hmm. And everything boils down to intention. So it seems like the intention of the first film was like, okay, well, actually, someone who becomes a Joker is somebody who probably had a very traumatized past and who's probably very mentally unstable. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to treat it more as like a sympathetic character study on it. Mm-hmm. That's what it seems like. And I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that was kind of the intention of the first film.
I would agree. Like they were trying to give you a little bit of a backstory to who the Joker is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, kind of give reason for his depravity, which I don't know why for so long that the Joker as a character has been running. I think part of the appeal of his character has always been the mystery. And even the comics have kind of gone in and tried to explain who Joker is, right? And I think it always gets a little muddied because I think part of the appeal of Joker has always just been just like he exists. He just exists. You know what I mean? Like there is no rhyme or reason to why he just does. And I think there's always been, I mean, even like if you look at the Batman the Animated Series, right? Like part of Joker had no origins. He just was already in existence, just like Batman was already in existence, right? And we never get like any concrete answers. And even his most famous storyline, The Killing Joke, in which we hear an origin story, we also come to find out at the very end, he's just like, well, maybe some of it's true, maybe some of it's not. It's hard to remember anymore. And we don't know. We don't get a concrete, definitive answer in that most famous story of his. So, yeah, Joker tried to give us a reason as to why he is the way he is, which, I don't know, in retrospect, did we need it?
Yeah. By the way, that Killing Joke origin story is the vat of acid one, is it not?
That's where yes, the vat of acid comes from that. Him being a failed stand-up comedian is part of that story. Barbara Gordon becoming paralyzed comes from that story. Him just trying to push Commissioner Gordon, like his kind of is kind of where we kind of see him just trying to do what he does, which is just try to push people over the edge to prove, like, his whole point of his story is that, like, you know, any good person can go mad if just pushed just enough, right? That's what the whole story is about.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, for comics, is great. It's like a wonderful story, despite the fact that I think Alan Moore wrote it and he hates it.
Yeah, well, Alan Moore has a weird relationship with not only his graphic novels, but with the culture, much like Todd Phillips, which we will get into. So Joaquin Phoenix goes on to win the Oscar, much celebrated. Yeah,
I just found that out, that he won the Oscar for the Joker. Is that like the first? No, that's not the first, because didn't Heath Ledger also win as the Joker?
Yes, posthumously he won.
Yeah, so all right, so I guess this is it. Joker maybe gets you an Oscar. It did not for Jared Leto.
No, it's surprisingly not. Yeah, he won the Oscar.
A riveting performance, in my opinion. Misunderstood, I would say.
Yeah. Anyway, definitely one that really got him to the point where he told Todd Phillips he wasn't ready to let go of the character of Arthur Fleck. And so they quickly started...
Not ready to let go of that Warner Brothers money, more like it.
Yeah, you know, he won the Oscar for it, so of course he wants it to continue. I don't think they ever had the original intention to make a sequel, but they came up with it. And somehow along the way, it became a musical that they decided to bring on Lady Gaga. This was as early as this was like announced. People knew that it was going to be a musical.
Yes.
So there's no surprises there.
There shouldn't have been.
There shouldn't have been any surprises there. So there's that. It took a while, pandemic, all sorts of reasons for it to take about 5 years for it to be released. But here we are, 5 years later, released on 70 millimeter IMAX, big weekend, you know, big hoopla over it. Warner Brothers betting their whole fall on it. And here we have Joker Folie Deux. It is going to probably most likely be a box office bomb. I think the budget was somewhere around 200 million and it has not grossed that yet.
Which is crazy. Where did that budget go? It did not, and this is not like, I'm not saying that it doesn't look like an expensive movie, because I think it's beautifully shot and I do like some of the set pieces. But what did most of the movie go into, like, music rights and Lady Gaga?
Could have been music rights, although a lot of those songs I think are Warner Brothers catalog songs, so maybe not.
Yeah,
and also just, you know, people got a bump in pay that they might have brought back.
That's true. Joaquin Phoenix had an Oscar. So,
yeah. But they also a lot of that went to the promotional value, as we know. So they did say that in order for this film to break even, it would have to gross $450 million. And I don't think it's going to do that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
In the first week, it was at number 1, but it did not project the numbers that they thought. And the second week, it went down to number 4.
Wow.
The Wild Robot surpassed it.
I heard The Wild Robot is good.
I do. Yeah, I heard that too. But The Wild Robot already had its time at number 1, and then it went down, and now it's
did
back.
It really? Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So
pretty crazy.
That's embarrassing. Okay.
If you go to like Letterboxd or Rotten Tomatoes, the film is getting incredibly low ratings, with Letterboxd being an average of 2.5. And yeah, people are They're very upset about this movie for a number of reasons. But the big one that we'll just jump off the bat with is the fact that people are not aware of the fact that it's a musical.
I mean, marketing, man. Like, this is the new Hollywood trend, right? Don't tell them it's a musical.
I suppose so. Although there were plenty of shots of them dancing and looking like they were, in musical numbers.
Singing?
And they actually, I think she sang the Hallelujah part in one of the trailers.
I don't remember that. I do remember, I think they did the Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear?
Yeah, but it wasn't like from the movie. But they did have that. I saw this trailer so many friggin' times that I can 100% guarantee you they put the Hallelujah clip in there.
So interesting. I only saw the trailer like maybe twice. I don't go to the movies as much as you do.
Yeah, I go to the movies outside of podcast homework. So.
Yeah, like I don't. So I actually had not. So same thing with when we covered the one we just covered last time. What was it? That one I had seen a lot.
Speak No Evil?
Speak No Evil. I saw that podcast, that trailer a lot more, but even that didn't bother me because I don't watch them. I don't go watching trailers that often.
True.
But I will say the trailer, I think it kind of did hide a little bit that it was a musical, right? But it also kind of gave us like some of the best composed shots in the trailer.
It took all the best shots. Which is kind of a shame
because I feel like they should not have, because those shots were so gorgeous. It would have been great to just consume them in the movie for the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the trailer was almost too well done because it did something that not every trailer does, was it didn't tell us anything about the story. And it was just
enough.
Purely about atmosphere and tone. And it got people excited.
Mm-hmm. And it did for me.
Yeah. And I guess it excluded the whole musical thing, but it like built up enough like teasing of what this movie could potentially be that a lot of people got an idea of what to expect from it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So man, who wants to talk about the story of this film? Like, sum it up. There's not actually that much in terms of the story.
So this film is mostly actually like a legal drama when it comes whittled down, right? So it's an exploration of the defense that Arthur Fleck, who is on trial for the murders he committed in the first film, his lawyer is trying to build a defense for him. And in the process, he ends up meeting Harley Quinn and falls head over heels, madly in love for her, madly being the key word. And she is kind of pushing him towards embracing the Joker persona that, the defense is building as like being almost like a separate entity. And he stops taking his meds as a result and starts slipping back into kind of madness. And in that madness, he ends up, representing himself in court, and he becomes almost like this, what is it, like a false prophet kind of figure in Gotham. And from it comes like his downfall.
Yeah, essentially.
Without giving any spoilers.
Yeah, and maybe we should just say it right now if you don't want to know, if you plan on seeing this and you don't want to know some things about the film, spoilers herein. So here is your official spoiler warning.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, he becomes this false prophet and embraces it until he realizes that he actually doesn't want to be this person anymore. Until he then decides to abandon Joker and that he just wants to be Arthur. He loses Harley because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up losing his own life. So big spoiler alert is that at the end of the movie, he ends up being killed.
Yes, he dies. I don't think we're getting Arthur Fleck back.
No more Arthur Fleck. And then it becomes pretty obvious that, I guess, if this is indeed the same world as our beloved IP of Batman, this guy is not going to go head to toe with Batman. Not that guy.
Yeah, not the implication there is the guy in the which I kind of appreciated, because at least officially now in Batman lore, Joker is not one person. He's like almost like an entity almost.
Yeah.
So, and then like, cause like the guy behind him, after he stabs him, he starts carving a smile in his face. And even the music, if you remember correctly, it sounds a little bit like the Dark Knight kind of music that they use for Heath Ledger's character, right? I'm not saying they're related, but I'm just saying, if you listen to like the way the scoring went, it did sound a little bit like they were doing an homage to that Joker.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen Dark Knight many times, so I don't know how that music goes.
Yeah. His was a little bit more
So, but what I feel like for this, what ends up happening, it changes the whole nature of the story. So it's no longer the origin story of the man that becomes the Joker, but it is the origin of the Joker persona, how that is born into this world, and how other people will take on the mantle of it. And Arthur was just the first one, but there are others will. So it kind of, it just flips it now.
Yeah, it does, because and this is, and we've seen this in the comics also and other iterations of the movie. Like Joker's gang of followees are like, they're cult followers and stuff.
Yeah.
So the joke, because there were Jokers even in the Batman that we saw with Robert Pattinson. So if you remember, like the first bunch of villains he fights are people who were dressed up as the Joker. Right, so we know like he always has like a cult following because he is like a cult of personality.
Yeah, he pretty much is like the symbol of anarchy and rebellion within Gotham, and it is, it's interesting because in terms of the fans, like it does kind of align in with like DC universe stuff. This is not a DC extended universe film. But like if you were to continue the lore of Batman or line it all up on a timeline, it could somewhat fit in. But outside
we got Harvey
of
Dent.
Yeah, we got Harvey Dent. Yeah, who apparently also got his Two-Face origin in this, which was totally unnecessary in my opinion.
Wait, you think so? His face wasn't burnt off in that scene.
Some people are speculating that is what happened.
No,
I think they left it ambiguous enough.
Fine.
I think it was a foreshadow of the possibility, but it didn't, because
I was waiting
because I wouldn't even just taken it half his face just being black and left it in the mystery, but
like just dirt. It didn't have to
be
just an
it was just a couple of scratches,
Yeah, he didn't. He wasn't like burnt to a crisp.
So. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, everyone has such a relationship to these stories, right? To Harvey Dent's origin story, to Gotham as a place, and to the Joker, to Batman and whatnot. So when people go and see this, they are kind of expecting a sense of familiarity there. So when you do something incredibly subversive as kill the Joker, you should expect some sort of reaction. But the film became so overwhelmingly negative, not just because of this, but that's just one of the many factors as to what this filmmaker did. So we said it, that it's a musical, but this film is a straight up musical. There's about 10 songs, I think, in this.
Is that many? All right. I'm going to go off right on the limb saying, like, I think I've said it on this podcast. I don't care for musicals typically. Like, they're not my cup of tea. Right. So I kind of was dreading to go see this movie, especially after the backlash the movie had faced. And I don't know, the music numbers did not bother me on this one, maybe because they were not what I was expecting. Although, do I wish Rob Marshall had been the one to direct this and give us a little bit more Chicago pizzazz? A little
Thank
bit.
you.
Just a little bit. I will say that because, again, the cinematography of this movie is actually really, really good. Like the atmosphere with the lighting that they were able to build, really great. And I think the costuming is really, really pretty, right? It's not like so in your face musical, but yet nice enough where it's a shame this movie flopped, because like being so close to Halloween, I could have seen a lot of girls just dressing up in nice dresses and just putting on like a little bit of clown makeup, being like, I'm Harley Quinn this year. You know what I mean? It was like, it would have been the perfect Halloween costume, but
especially since she gave a tutorial on how to do it in the movie. So
that's true. She did. Yeah.
But I kind of did wish there was a little bit more. So the musical numbers were too mumbly and too like soft spoken. They weren't like he had it coming. Dun, dun, right? It was kind of more like he had it coming. He had it coming.
All right.
That kind of, you know what I mean?
No more karaoke, babe. Summer's over. But I felt like for her it was fine. For her,
she could sing,
but
she's a great singer.
But for him, I couldn't. Most of the time, it was mumbled. Most of the time, I could not distinguish words when he sung.
Yeah,
and I was like I didn't need it from him. I would have maybe preferred her madness being the music. Like, this is how she expressed how her madness is expressed in these scenarios, instead of him being part of it or singing to it. So I didn't need him to sing. I didn't need as many numbers of songs either. I was more interested on the madness of their relationship than this.
Yeah, but the movie's not interested in that.
I know.
Which is a shame, because like they actually had great chemistry.
They did. Yeah. Well, okay. So it's interesting that you brought up Chicago, because Chicago is a direct parallel here. That's another movie about a delusional main character where all the musical numbers happen in their head. It's also a courtroom drama, and it's about the blurring of the lines between, you know, America's obsession with crime / entertainment and how they intersect a lot.
Which
and
this
Rob
movie
Marshall
also kind of explores.
Yeah. And they both did it with like elaborate sets. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Reality is drab and terrible, where fantasy is elaborate and extravaganza musical numbers. The difference is that Rob Marshall knows how to direct a musical and understands musicals. Todd Phillips does not know how to direct a musical. He doesn't understand how to direct a musical, nor do I think he wants to. He wanted to make an anti-musical, which is fine, but he could have gotten more into like making it. He didn't shoot the musical sequences cinematically at all. He just kind of was like, and then they start singing and that's it. And he fundamentally misunderstood the purpose of them, that every single one just felt misplaced and misdirected.
I agree with you a little bit on that. Like, I do think some of the musical numbers did feel, the whole point of a musical is that you're supposed to sing a song and it's supposed to like push the story forward a little, right? Like that's the ultimate goal that you would hope
sometimes,
for.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or like their feelings are so intense that like only the music can explain it for them. And sometimes the musical numbers maybe just didn't match that intensity and stuff might be the issue.
Yeah, so some of the musical numbers seem to be in place of what, you know, musical is, where it's like the emotions are so high and I can only convey my emotions through song. When he does like his little tap dance number too, like he's feeling the high of being Joker and everyone loves him, good musical number. When he like calls her on the phone and he's trying to connect with her, you know, okay, musical number. When they're on the stairs and he's like, hey, Lee, don't you love me? And she's like, no, I don't love you anymore. And then she sings That's Entertainment. Not a good musical number. It almost seemed like it was there to like piss people off at the end of the day. Like it was just so unnecessary, and it didn't really say anything unique up at that point, you know, and whatever point he was trying to make a parallel between entertainment and reality, etc., was already made by then, either effectively or not effectively. And at that point, it was just like, and now here's another moment that will piss these stupid fans off, which corresponds to, I think, what a lot of people are actually enraged about, which is that the whole movie feels like a fuck you to fans. And Todd Phillips wanting to make a whole movie that is pretty much throwing up the middle finger at the people who loved and admired, I suppose, the first film is very audacious. It's very bold and
Very
really problematic in its own way. Yeah.
Isn't it? Wait, is it? How so?
Well, because why do you feel like a film's whole purpose should be to say fuck you to the fans?
Do you remember the kind of fans that liked Joker and were resonating with him? Keep in mind the time period, right? This is 2019. I thought it was like actually a little later, but 2019, we're very, very much peak into MAGA, and we're about to enter a new election cycle. Pandemic hasn't started just yet, right? But we are. Let's remember that time period that we're in, that we still haven't like kind of escaped a little. I think the kind of meninists and incels that really found themselves gravitating towards Joker, I understand why he would be like, oh, these are not my peoples, if that's in fact his intention.
Yeah,
and
so the whole big thing was that
to say like fuck off, like I'm making a movie that you'll hate.
Yeah, so the first one did in a way become this whole like incel rallying cry, and he got kind of, you know, it seems like people misinterpreted his first film, which is fine, and which, you know, sometimes happens with art and people take multiple things from it. But that's just a small percentage of the people who liked it. You know, this ended up
Hollywood
being one of the top
you know.
10 highest grossing movies of 2019. A lot of people liked it. And this fan base is very wide. You know, you yourself are a huge Batman fan. You know, we're all fans of cinema, etc. So for it to just be like that small group being the whole reason for this movie,
A loud minority can really make enough noise to like kind of, you know, make you feel a certain way of your audience.
yeah. So I'm trying to play sympathetic to the people who feel like pretty much like dicked over by what he did, because there's a whole lot of people who don't meet, I guess, this whole criteria of who he's specifically perhaps trying to say fuck you to. But maybe he's not. Maybe he's just trying to say fuck you to all of us.
Maybe.
And
like maybe this
make
is like
a
big
film.
fuck you too.
Yeah, maybe. And it's interesting because it almost like knew it's almost like he knew he would fail and that it could be potentially this box office bomb. And did he care? I wonder. So it's very interesting because like as an artistic effort, maybe it's interesting, but as like an actual film, and I don't know. I still haven't made up my mind as to whether or not I think a whole film should be made just to say fuck you to people. And I'm a fan of punk music. I love like it ends up being this whole cathartic kind of art form, you know, release of all the things you wish you could do and say in real life. But maybe it's because he's using musicals, a genre that I so happen to love and have a lot of respect for. And he's like using it in a way that, you know, everybody, like from this perspective that everyone hates musicals. I want to talk it through because it's also like clearly Harley Quinn is not Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is fans. We are Harley Quinn. And everything that happens in that relationship is pretty much, it's Joker's the movie and we're Harley Quinn. Or Lee Quinzel.
Harley, she was Harley. It was her.
She sort of was. Well, so she's clearly like unstable, unreliable, you know, which also is probably us. And like a fan of his after she saw a movie about him and has no idea who he really is, but who she wants him to be, which is Joker, not Arthur Fleck, and also like supports this persona of Joker. And so, you know, I want you to bring, you know, the chaos, and I want you to bring, you know, the thrill and all like the crown prince of crime. And we celebrate you for that, you know, which the movie is also saying is problematic of a person to want to bring out of somebody. Yes. She is upset and disappointed and abandons him when she realizes that he's an actual human being who is flawed and who needs help, right? And at the end, rejects him when he rejects his Joker persona. So that whole relationship there feels like they knew what the response was going to be of the movie, almost like that fans would reject this. And it wants you to reject it because it doesn't want someone like you, someone as unreliable and psychotic as Lee, to be on it in its corner anyway. You know what I mean? That's what it like kind of feels like.
Interesting.
Now, you said you read it a little differently. How did you read it?
Well, so I read it, I guess I have more of a history with Harley Quinn because I was part of that audience that grew. She was created by the Batman the Animated Series, right? She does not come from the comic books. She was created by the Batman the Animated Series. She became so popular that they developed a background story for her. They brought her into the comic books, and she kind of would go on and take her life of her own. Part of that life is this abusive domestic abuse relationship she has with the Joker that kind of defines her in her breaking free of it and kind of becoming her own anti-hero in the process. And she's always, at least typically in media, not necessarily the comics, but I'm talking about like in TV and film, usually she's very much defined by her relationship with the Joker. And usually the relationship is until most recent adaptations of like the Harley Quinn show on Max. But most adaptations are she falls in love with him and goes so mad as a psychiatrist and becomes infatuated and ends up resorting to become the Harley Quinn sidekick for him. right? I think in some iterations she throws herself in the vat of acid, or he pushes her off, right? It depends on which iteration you're looking at. But it's her being driven to madness. I liked this version because it kind of flips that script a little bit, where he is a broken man who she is pushing towards that madness to like come out, right? She's the one who encourages him to stop taking meds, and she's the one who kind of is pushing him to embrace that Joker persona, right? So completely the inverse of the Harley Quinn that we typically see in media. But also, what I thought was interesting, Eddie from the who pointed this out to me, was the fact that she just becomes another woman who kind of uses him, right? Because he was sexually abused. We know this from like growing up, like his thing. He was mentally abused by his mother in the first one. He had a very fraught relationship, and like he's always a victim of women. And she kind of, I thought it was interesting that like Harley Quinn is just another one that just victimizes him.
That's interesting because in his childhood, wasn't he assaulted by men?
Oh, was he assaulted by men? I thought he was assaulted. I don't remember. I thought it was assaulted by the mom, that she had like a psychosexual relationship with him too. I don't remember. I don't remember.
But she let her friends like take advantage of him.
Still,
and
all right,
also,
but that still puts a women. Put women.
I also think that the movie is heavy implicating that the police officer assaults him in the film, so he's also a victim of that man.
When they beat him up and they put him in the shower.
I think so.
And Sullivan says, "Take those rags off." Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, I thought it was because like they were, to clean him. Oh, interesting. I didn't see the sexual assaultiness of this. I'm not saying that he is not a victim. I am saying
I think he's just a victim, period. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
But like there were a lot of women, where he took, for some reason he had to focus on women and stuff, right? Like remember his obsession with like that female character that he thought he was like had a relationship with. His social worker was a woman, but like she wasn't necessarily a victim. She didn't victimize him. She was trying to help him and stuff, but like the system was so fucked up that
and
she
his
was
lawyer,
helpless.
Yeah,
his lawyer is another woman who tried to help him, but like he ends up shunning away. I feel like he has a very fraught relationship with women, and I feel like this Harley Quinn kind of just added to that.
But she absolutely did as like a character in the movie, and I absolutely would agree with you. And I mean the movie, but also it wants nothing to do with like DC and like ties to DC lore.
Yeah,
it's very much making its own thing here.
Yeah,
so
she's not the psychiatrist who fell in love. Although she did have a psychiatric background, we find out. So it was just like, okay, there's that nod. So
there's like there are little nods to it, but it's very much its own story. Just as the original film is kind of like a one-off, and he dies at the end. So this is all its own fucking world at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of people who are like analyzing the metafiction aspect of this are saying that like when he's like, oh, we're not giving the people what they want. And she goes, well, you should give them what they want. And then they go back to that whole sequence on stage in like the Sonny and Cher type show, where after he's like, I don't want to give them what they want. Then she kills him. Mm-hmm. Like she just is representative, of expectations of what people want from Joker and how they react when they don't get it.
Could it be what they want from Todd Phillips, but they don't react a certain way when they don't get it?
It could be too. Maybe Joker is Todd Phillips himself, mm-hmm. and it's not just the movies, but it's his work, because it is sort of his film. It ends up. His
movies are like The Hangover, isn't it?
Yeah, he made The Hangover. He made Road Trip. He made another comedy, Due Date. Like, he comes from a comedy background, and I also think that he wrote for Borat, so he also is someone who's quite subversive.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he wants to make, these type of films now, more dramatic and not just be pigeonholed into comedy. But it's interesting because at the end of the day, let's just say that this film is about him and his stance on all of this. And that's it. We're such a culture of fan service, and this film is pushing back against this whole notion of fan service. It's purposely not giving into what you want from this movie, which is something to, honestly, I do think be admired. But I think how he went about it is kind of misguided.
I don't know. Yes, I agree. It should be admired, right? Because so much of our movie just placates to the fanboys, whatnot, right? Like, Marvel bases a lot of their decisions based off of whatever the fanboys, however the fanboys are reacting, right? Look at their decision to undo a whole phase of their, movie franchise right now because like just fans were not liking the direction of it. And I think it was Bob Iger when he returned, like it was just like, nope, we're going back to putting the white man in the costume, and like, we're doing away with all these like female leads, we're doing away with like any people of color, we're going back to white man being our saviors, so yeah, I don't know, like fan service is a detriment to, well, I can't say it's a detriment to comic book movies in general because like so much of the comic book movies thrive on fan service. But I don't know, like I don't know. All right. So maybe the reason I'm conflicted with this is because I kind of like the film. I'm someone who is suffering right now a lot of comic book movie fatigue, and I am also kind of suffering from Batman fatigue because so much of DC's like properties tends to be like Batman adjacent. Like right now, look, we have Joker do a fool, do a foul, fool a do, whatever it is. And the Penguin is also out. I haven't seen it despite the fact that it's gotten great reviews. I just haven't watched it because I just like, I don't know. I don't know if I need to see another Batman villain origin story without Batman being involved. You know what I mean? And it made me wonder, like when I was coming out of the movie, actually, I was wondering, like, well, how long is it until we get a Poison Ivy like solo movie now that she's like an environmental terrorist and, we're supposed to be protecting the environment? It's just like a little mind-boggling. However, with that said, yes, the fatigue is real. I came out of this movie because just like this was so different. This was so out of the box. This was so wild, wacky, crazy. And I was just like, I kind of liked it I kind of did like it because it just was so fucking weird. And I was kind of here for it. And I think I ultimately liked how mishmashed it felt and disjointed and mad because, Arkham Asylum is a mad, mad place, So much of our movie was spent there. And I do agree with you where some of the musical numbers made no sense. I think some of the order of them also kind of didn't make sense. So, for example, one of the big scenes, the first time we see the full Joker makeup outside of the little animation in the beginning of the film is when he gets sent to the penitentiary by himself, right? I think that was the first time we see him in Joker makeup, in full Joker makeup. And I think that was wrong. They should have, we should have sent him to the penitentiary into the solo place by himself into the hole and give him a few scenes of like kind of going mad in there, right? Because like we know this from actual studies that like when you get thrown into the hole by yourself, you just go crazy, right? Like the lack of connection with anyone. Had Harley come and then paint the makeup on him, we see this Joker and then go into his first like sequence of him in the full Joker regalia. And now we know for sure it's just like, okay, these are all clear. Like we knew they were in his head, but like, this would have been like more the moment of the Joker coming out. That was one of my big critiques of the film. But overall, I actually did like the musical numbers, despite the mumbliness of it. I thought they looked good. I actually like, for example,
that was one of the better ones.
On the fake rooftop, for example, I like that sequence. And you do come from a place of loving musicals. I don't. So I don't have that connection. So for me, it worked. Not so because I was hating it, but more so because I was just like, this is pretty.
I get it.
This is weird, and I'm liking it. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. Like Eddie, the musical? You hated the musical numbers. Like what? Did they really not work for you at all? I thought they worked.
No, I didn't hate all of them. I just felt like actually the musical numbers were not the problem. Sometimes it was just kind of the singing in the ordinary world that maybe.
Oh, when they break out into song, like in and they're breaking that rule of just like, wait, are we in their mind or are we in the real world?
So it was like those scenes where they just kind of like singing, speaking, it's or things are, or how she uses when she starts singing when she doesn't want to answer a question, like when he asks if she's about the baby, and she just continues to sing and sing about us and like says what about the baby and us, and she just keeps on singing.
That's entertainment.
Yeah. So
interesting. So I actually thought the song worked for me, maybe because I wasn't listening to the lyrics, but the song when he is saying, it's like, oh, what are you doing? Let's give them what they want, right? She pulls out the gun. That's entertainment. That sequence. The reason I thought that worked is because it's very much obvious at that point in the film that he is right now. He's distraught when he finds out who maybe the real Harley is. Because that's when this comes, right? When his lawyer tells him, this is who Harley is. She's been lying to you. She's playing you. And he's very, very much distraught at this moment. And he doesn't know, like, which is the real Harley. And so the musical number comes in, like, when she's about to shoot him in that sequence, because I thought it worked because it's just, like, part of it is this whole, similar to Chicago, it's just, like, yeah, it's all entertainment. Like, I'm doing this so I could be a star myself. Right, which isn't to say that I'm not saying that she wanted to be a star, but she loved that she was an apostle of his. You know what I mean? She loved that she was one of those disciples, and she relished being. And we could tell that she enjoyed being in the spotlight because she was doing interviews. We know this. We know that she was doing interviews. The lawyer said so.
Yeah. The first time we hear that song at work, so the reprise, I don't know. It just became too randomly placed and on the nose. And again, I would agree with Eddie that it's not necessarily that there's musical numbers. It's that he didn't quite utilize them to work at their effectively. Again, I do know that he's going for an anti-musical, but he didn't even like really fully embrace that either. He just kind of half-assed all of it. And yeah, I'm someone who appreciates musicals as art form. And I also appreciate, anti things. Like I like anti-Westerns, anti-musicals, anti-whatever. And he just didn't fully lean into either of them. And it was like, and I think all that energy just like was very edgelord and very like, fuck you. And I don't know, like to me, I can forgive a movie if there's a clear intention there. And the intention is like, I wanted to do this, or here's my intention as a filmmaker. And I don't know if I'm like completely a fan of some white guy's intention being fuck you incels. Like it feels kind of nasty because it's also like. Would you have rather
been a woman?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if a woman could have made this movie. This is very, very male territory here. Let's just say that. I don't know. Which is why it's fitting for a man to say this to other men or whatever. But men don't just love this movie. Women love this movie. I don't know. It's complicated.
Women loved Harley Quinn and Joker, this movie?
I'm sure women liked the first Joker. Yeah, I'm sure.
No. I meant like, I'm talking about this one. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure some women.
Maybe people like this movie.
The women that I follow have not liked it.
A lot of people don't like this movie.
And I was like, I was surprised though. I was shocked. It was just like, why did I came out liking the movie? What's wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? Or was the bar set so low that when I came out saying it's just like, that was, it
could have been worse. Yeah.
Well, no, I was venturing to say like, I may have liked this one more than Joker, to be quite honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like this actually, I might rewatch this one.
Serious?
Joker, I had no desire of rewatching ever.
I will say the second one is a little bit more original, whereas the first film, again, was just a regurgitation of 70s character study films. But I think
it felt original for even a comic book movie also. It's not a comic book movie, but it is.
I suppose so, yeah. Well, what's interesting about it, too, though, is that I think that Joker Folie is more original than Joker 1, 2019. And maybe we're finally seeing that the first Joker wasn't actually that good a movie to begin with. Maybe it was just like everyone was looking at it with like stars in their eyes and rose-colored glasses on. And I don't know. That's just because they put a 70s movie and a comic book movie together and that's it. Like it didn't do anything unique really other than that.
Do you know 30 Rock, right?
Yes.
I'm coming back to, as I always usually do. Jenna had this idea where she lied about her age, but she made herself seem older, right? Because, as she puts it, it's just like, well, do you know how good Helen Mirren looks?
Is that what she says? Good.
Well, yeah. She's like, oh, yeah. Have you seen Helen Mirren in the bikini photos? Yeah, Helen Mirren looks great for however old she is. I think she was like 70-something at the time, right? And that's the key word, for 70 something at the time. And Joker as a film, the reason it is so admired is because, like, again, peak comic book culture moment. And it was like different. It was gritty. It was real. It felt like it was trying to say something. And as a result, like, people just went over there. It's like, this is one of the greatest movies ever. And to a degree, it was a good movie. I thought it was, you know, it was nicely shot. It was well acted. You know, whether or not, you know, it stood the test of time, that's to be, I guess it is to be seen. And right now we're seeing it's just like, maybe it doesn't. But, and that's why I think this one is coming. I think this one's coming at an interesting time. 5 years later, you know, we are right now in the midst of another false prophet running for office, the highest office in all the land, and maybe winning. I don't know. Like, it just felt like, I think giving a big fuck you to this sect of people was kind of merited, in my opinion. And I also happen to, I don't know. I thought the movie was better than Joker. I think it was more memorable for me, this one, than Joker. Maybe because I think you're right. Like, Joker was so derivative of those of Taxi Driver and the other one I hadn't seen.
King of Comedy.
King. I've never seen that one. So, but yeah, I had heard that, and I think you mentioned that on the podcast. Where this one maybe felt a little derivative of Chicago, but not even. Right? I did want more razzle dazzle, but they didn't give it to me. But I didn't also feel ripped off because I'm not a fan of musicals in general.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, I mean, it's easy to do a prequel and an origin story, but it's hard to continue it when we already know where, like, the character is supposed to go.
But we didn't know where the character was.
We don't know where the Joker is supposed to go. You're right. This is a different character.
This is different. This is different in that sense because it changes it.
Yeah.
I just think that was an interesting thing to do, to be like, this is not about Arthur. This is about the Joker, you know? And I know that sounds stupid because this is called the Joker, but it's about the persona. Like, this is the mantle that's going to exist for decades to come. You know, people are going to take on this name and they're going to paint their face and they're going to bring chaos, you know, and laugh about it. And it'll be senseless. And I think the most important thing is that all this chaos, all this death, all this destruction is, when you in the filter of the Joker, is senseless, has no meaning. It's just madness.
It's true. Yeah. Well, you know, and this just inspired a thought. I will say that Todd Phillips being so angry at people, you know, like misinterpreting his intention of his first film, or incels using it as a rallying cry, that's not their fault. It's his fault. He's the one who made the film. And he's the one who conveyed it in such a way that actually ended up making, like, why the fuck is he dancing on the stairs? Of course, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, that's so cool and so beautiful and so iconic. That does not scream, you know, troubled mental illness to me. There is a glorification of this character. There is a glorification of his actions and his violence. So any result that he got and people misinterpreting it is not their fault. It's his fault, and he should take more responsibility for that instead of making a whole movie saying, fuck you for misunderstanding my intentions, bro. So
one of the podcasts I listened to actually described it great. Joker, the fan base of the Joker, is the same kind of people who watch Breaking Bad and think Walter White is a good guy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Which is just like, because that's what I kind of so many fights with so many friends. I'm just like, what do you, Skylar White was not a villain. Skylar White was the poor woman who was thrown in the worst situation ever. And how can you guys always say that she's like the worst character ever? Like, this woman suffered at the hands of Walter White.
But here's the thing too, whenever you make media, there's always going to be people who misinterpret it. You can't control that. Like, when you can't like control how people absorb it and what they take from it. You know, it's like, you can't blame Fight Club for inspiring Fight Clubs. Like, of course there's going to be idiots who start fucking Fight Club. You can't make Fight Club Part 2 and be like, fuck you for making your own Fight Clubs. Like, I don't know. It's just, to me, seems so infantile of a reaction to have based on, now, this is a problem with the whole IP in general. This is not just a Todd Phillips problem. And this is why you yourself probably have some fatigue with it, is because of maybe perhaps a fan base. But I don't think it's warranted enough to make such a film with such a spiteful intention. I think it's not as punk rock as it is nasty. And there's a difference between being like punk, and they're like, punk rock is not nasty. It's more cathartic. It's more of like, I'm speaking solely of punk rock as a genre. It's more like, you've rejected me, so I reject you because of what you've done to me. But, all these people celebrated Todd Phillips. Nobody rejected him. I don't know.
I'm not sure he didn't turn down he didn't renounce like Joaquin Phoenix winning Best Actor. Did he get nominated for anything else?
He didn't turn down his $200 million budget and all the money and praise he got. I don't know.
I mean, that's the most.
That would have been punk rock.
I don't know. I guess for me, it's just like, fine. He made a movie to piss off a lot of his fan base, but like at the end of the day, like if you didn't go into this movie knowing that, right? Like, is this a bad movie? I actually don't think it was. I think, first of all,
I can speak on that.
Oh,
so
now you're cutting me off.
Yeah, because you can't speak on it because you have all this information about
fair.
This is stuff like that, and
I think you did go in most blind,
and you are seeing, and Nicole, you're seeing not only this movie, but you're seeing how this movie is representing other movies, or how other movies are being taken. I'm not coming with that knowledge. I'm coming at like, oh, I see a lot of superhero movies. I see a lot of anti-hero movies, and I know a lot about comics. So when I'm coming here, I'm seeing what's fresh, what's new. How can you give me origins? How can you make me care about a character, which I don't even care about when I read about it in the comic books, right? Like that stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What this movie did, I was coming in, I was ready to be very much bored or not enjoying this movie just because of how everyone was reacting to it. I said, how awful this movie must be to get such a response. So I was surprised that I did enjoy it. I not as much as I enjoyed the first one, but I did enjoy it. And it's because of Joaquin Phoenix and because of Lady Gaga and how they portray these characters. I love their acting. I love how I sometimes would feel sorry for Arthur, the character Arthur, because there was abuse. So this is a character you see that was continually being beaten and made into a monster. And now he's in Arkham under a system that continues to abuse him, and he's going to continue. His little slither of hope is his relationship with this young woman, and the spark of a possibility that he could be something different. So I'm getting this kind of stuff from it. So I'm not getting the whole fuck you thing. For me, it's just. I'm totally missing that, but I am getting how the system is created in such a way that people who don't fit or who deviate from it just get smashed through it, and Gotham is like that. Gotham is all about its monoliths, its great structures, and its shadows. And that's what you got. And Arthur himself has fallen within those shadows. The only thing is that the Joker is the shadow. The Joker is the shadow.
Yeah, quite literally in the cartoon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So important because that is like us. That hints that Arthur is really being puppeteered by this other entity, almost a split personality. This dark shadow side. So,
yeah.
No, absolutely.
I kind of wish the lawyer had more pizzazz. And this is just me, because this is also just me coming from.
He's been dying to talk about this.
I have, because I have just gotten off. I had to fly to Seattle, and I binged Monster, the Eric and Lyle Menendez murders, and the lawyer, the one they cast to play the lawyer, she was so good, and all I wanted was the same kind of like
energy. You wanted that same
energy in my lawyer representing Joker, and instead I got kind of like, I don't know. tired public servant.
Well, okay,
She
so
wasn't. I didn't think so.
No.
Here's the thing,
She's right.
though.
She wasn't. Yeah. She's clearly a public defender, right? Like, most likely.
I think so, yeah. So if you were to, by the way, Eddie, most of the discourse that's happening right now about Joker is the fact that everyone feels like Todd Phillips said fuck you to them. You got to read about it, because a lot of people are saying, in this character in particular, that she's Todd Phillips.
Oh, wait,
she's
people
the
are
one
saying
who's
that
trying to...
Harley Quinn is Todd Phillips?
No, the lawyer. We're talking about the lawyer here, right?
Oh.
That the lawyer is the one who's trying to be like, no, this is a mentally ill person. We should actually be like looking at, the history and what made them this and trying to understand them. And like, nobody wants that. And then she gets fired, right? Like, she's representative of the filmmaker. Joker is what happened with the film and how it took off. Lee Quenzel is the fan base.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Sure. Because if she's representing the filmmaker, I'm so sorry. I just want to finish this. That's why she is the way she is, because she's like the sane one, the grounded one, the one trying to be reasonable here, where everyone else is kind of like unhinged. Yeah. Well, I mean, the pizzazz I need from her is not necessarily because
that's entertainment.
Listen to me. No, it's not that. I don't need Billy Flynn. I don't need Billy Flynn. But what I need kind of here is just like, because like I think the points this lawyer was making specifically are true. I think and that's kind of why I resonated so much with this character from the Lyle element, right? Because I did some research on the actual lawyer, and she's a staunch believer of like against capital punishment. She's a staunch believer against like, it's just like if you are a victim throughout your whole life and you like act out in murder, like that is not someone who necessarily needs to be punished their whole life. That is someone who needs to be rehabilitated, right? And I kind of ultimately, that's what in theory, I should have liked this lawyer, because like she was fighting the good fight. Arthur Fleck is a broken human who does not deserve the death penalty, right? We could have made a very fascinating movie about this, defending the lawyer, defending the Joker in court. I actually would love to see this movie. Like if we took like a real, if we took like Batman, even like he has to come and testify against a fucking Joker. You know what I mean? And the lawyer has to say, the judge has to throw out.
That's fan service. It would never do that. That's fan service.
Of course, Batman would never go. He can't, but here's the other thing. And in the world of Batman, nothing that the Batman ever brings into court can ever really be tried fairly, because like vigilante justice gets thrown out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's silly. I guess that's why we need a movie where we just don't have Batman, but I'm still missing Batman. But anyway, I just mean like I feel like I should have empathized more with the lawyer, but she just did not have necessarily the energy. She felt so low energy. And I think that might have been intentional. She's fucking dealing with a lot. Like dealing with Arthur Fleck, dealing with this corrupt system. We didn't see much we saw the corruption in Arkham, but like the implication with Gotham is that it's always corrupt, right? And they're always just trying to just throw the book at like these criminals and throw them and lock them up and stuff. I don't know. I felt like, sure, it could have been a more interesting film, but I just wanted more. I guess I wanted razzle dazzle from my lawyer. I need a little Billy Flynn, just a little.
It's not the worst film of the year. I think that overreaction. I think it's an overreaction from fans, though. At the end of the day, I understand them, and I also think that this film's intention is misplaced. Period. But I agree. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie, but it's not a bad movie.
Disagree. I might be one of my favorites of the year so far.
Wow. Well, you're just also a nonconformist, so.
I don't see that many movies, right?
There's that too. But I also think that I still stand by the first movie not being a great movie either. Like everyone was like, that was a masterpiece. And
yes, people were. I actually think, I still stand by this. I think this one was better. So that one was a masterpiece. This one is just truly
5 stars.
Divine. Yeah. Well, no, I stand by this. I think this one was a better film. I don't care what. Like I will down this molehill. Like it's just like the Joker do a full. Is that it? Full a doigt.
Folie a deux.
You know what? This is where we fucked up. Also, it should have had just a simple title: Joker 2, Joker and Harley. We didn't need French in our title here.
That's the most American thing you've said.
Thank you. What does the title mean? Like Two Fools in Love?
Yeah, it's kind of like when one person suffers a mental illness and then another person who's close to them suffers it as well. It's called Folie à Deux for that reason. So like twins sometimes go through this, or people who are very close sometimes. If one person goes mad, the other one will.
Menendez brothers.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, it all ties back to the Menendez brothers.
as it all.
I stand by this. They're both incredibly mediocre films. So
you didn't like the cinematography in this one either? I thought the cinematography was gorgeous in this one.
Yeah, but good performances, good cinematography does not a good movie make. It all needs to come together. It's kind of like Maestro last year, had really good performances for the most part, had nice cinematography. It was a wreck as a movie. So
yeah. So I guess for me, I guess the reason I do like this one is because they had beautiful cinematography, great performances, and I liked the story. I guess I like courtroom dramas, or I'm liking courtroom dramas more and more.
I love courtroom dramas. I did like the courtroom drama aspect of it.
I did too. Like when Joker represents himself in the Joker attire, I mean, wacky. Like, talk about like silly. Judges just like.
Well, I mean, that's what Ted Bundy did. So I was like, oh,
did he really? I didn't know that. Oh, there you go. See, all right. Now, was that explored in any of these Ted Bundy shows?
I think the one with Zac Efron did.
Oh, I'm not a big Zac Efron fan, so maybe not. I just want to say one more thing. I know we have like comic book fatigue for sure, but is Hollywood's answer to this by giving us the villains stories exclusively, right? Because right now in this month alone, we have 3 going on. We have Agatha All Along on Disney Plus. We have The Penguin on Max, and now Joker de Khafu. And I'm sure we have others like that I have forgotten about already. But I don't know. Do you enjoy this kind of going into like, let's explore the villains?
You're asking the wrong person with me. I think Eddie should should maybe talk a little bit more about that. All right,
how about this? Would you want to see a villain's origin story of like fucking, well, I said of like Poison Ivy because she's a bioterrorist. But like isn't that what we should be aiming for?
What are we aiming for? Or I think including
as a hero. Is it not heroic to fight for the Mother Nature nowadays, knowing that like, you know, how climate change is going? I mean, look at Florida. Look at North Carolina right now, right?
Yeah.
Poison Ivy would never.
No, there's a difference between eco-terrorism and being an environmentalist. But it is interesting to see certain villain stories kind of develop. And also some of these stories, like we got Harley Quinn. I mean, there's been movies, Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn. You know, we got to see this like development of, you know, the Suicide Squad. We got to see the development of this character as like, you know, like crazy villain to almost anti-hero, you know, and that's been interesting to see. And I've actually loved this recent, and also now her animated series on Max too. It's those things have been like fun to watch.
So you're cool with like exploring more villains and less superheroes?
I am cool in incorporating villain origin stories within this whole, you know, this whole fandom of movies, of superhero movies.
And Nicole, I'm taking it you have no comment on them, say?
I like movies and TV shows or media that will take a classic villain, an iconic villain, and give us a backstory and actually shed some light on why they're probably misunderstood. Let's say Wicked, right? The Wicked movie's coming out later this year. That whole thing is about the Wicked Witch, and we're covering it. That whole movie's going to be about the Wicked Witch of the West and how actually she's not as wicked as we think she is. We just put a label on her and we misunderstand who she really is and where she's coming from. Movies, though, that are about like, hey, here's this evil person who does really bad and terrible things, and let's get an understanding of why they do the evil and terrible things. I think I've just had a little bit too much of that. This country is very fascinated with the anti-hero story, and not even anti-hero, just straight up villain stories, to the point where it becomes glorification, and it's just not my cup of tea.
So with that said, where do you think this Harley Quinn falls into that? Like, where do you like? Because this is a new interpretation of Harley Quinn. So where does she fall into that? I
don't know, because she actually was really poorly developed in the film that we can't even really say who she is. Yeah. But she does fall more into like a product of society, I think.
Mm.
That she wasn't born this way, perhaps. Maybe society made her this way. But we don't know. Born this way.
That a Gaga reference?
Wow. That was such a Freudian slip.
Anyway, the point is, I don't know. I guess I'm the only one here full down this molehill where go see fucking Joker do a fool.
You should go see Joker, guys. You should be part of this discourse and tell us what you guys think, what your opinions are of this movie, and reach out to us and let us know. Ways you can do that. Email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter @RemakesPodcast. Hit us up on Instagram @RemakesRebootsRevivals. We are on YouTube and Facebook. Just search for Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. Visit our website, remakesrebootsrevivals.com. You can search all of our past episodes on Podbean. And if you are listening on a podcasting platform like, say, Google Podcast or Spotify, give us a rating. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, not only give us a rating, but please leave us a review. At the end of the year, when we do our big year in review, we are going to handpick some reviews and read them on the air. So stay tuned for that.
We keep moving that goalpost as to what we're doing. These reviews.
Yeah, we keep promising it. It'll come. It'll come.
Yeah.
So in 2 weeks, we'll be back. I think we're going to be covering Salem's Lot. Perhaps not.
Oh, is that the Halloween thing?
I think so.
We covered something Halloweenish in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
no longer Halloween, is it?
It's like right at the end of it.
Okay.
It's like no, it's October 30th in 2 weeks, so it would be right.
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, this movie better be worth it.
Better be worth it.
With all
Will it be worth it?
Stuff.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't think so.
Well, I was gonna say tune in, but we'll tell you now.
On
that note, I guess.
Stay on original.